All right. Hi, everyone. This is Anna Skinner, also known as the Happy Collector. And today we're celebrating the 60th anniversary of the premiere of Gilligan's Island. And it wouldn't be the same without speaking to Dreama Denver. And the wife of Bob Denver. Hi, Dreama.
Hi, Anna, how are you doing?
Oh, wonderful. It is so great to talk to you. I have wanted to visit with you for so long. You're
Oh,
such
well,
an
thank you. You really are the collector. I'm looking at everything around you going, wow, that's
uh,
pretty awesome.
it has
Bob would
been.
be so impressed if he could see that.
Oh boy, he might wonder about me too. Going, okay, well, she's probably got some other things going on. But no, it has been a real joy. I kind of call it my little Gilligan's Island museum.
Yeah,
Um,
for
Hopefully, we'll
sure.
get a chance to talk about a few things.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Now, I remember you from the Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island movie. I
Yes,
remember you. You played Mrs. Howell's social secretary.
I did. Yes, I did.
Everybody kept coming to talk to the Howells, and you're like, wait a minute, wait, you're not on the schedule.
That's right. You can't get by me
That's right.
without the proper credentials. You know,
Yeah.
that was so much fun. That was not the first time I met all the castaways because I was there for all the Gilligan movies. I was there for the rescue from Gilligan's Island and the castaways on Gilligan's Island. So I'd met everybody prior and the nicest cast you would ever want. I'm not just saying that because they were the castaways. They just were really fine and very talented people. So when they were doing the third movie, Sherwood decided that he was going to put me in it. The year before, they had been doing a table read of Castaways on Gilligan's Island, and I read for somebody. I can't remember, maybe Ginger or somebody who wasn't there. And I read the part, and Sherwood liked what I did, so he decided to put me in the third movie. And it's one of the highlights of my career. I mean, I was an actress before I met Bob. That's how I met Bob. But to be able to do that with those guys
Mm.
when it was just such an honor, and I really had the best time. I just loved them all so much.
Well, there's one scene in this movie. Girl, you're playing basketball with the Harlem Globetrotters.
Tell
I,
me about it.
I have got to ask her about that. I mean, unless she's like 7'3" or something. I mean, you kind of held your own with those guys. I'm like, wow.
I had no idea what I was doing. Number one, I'm 5'4", so I'm nowhere close to, to their height. But it was really just sort of a fun
Yeah.
scene where, we weren't expected, obviously, to be basketball players or anything. But just think of that, playing basketball. I mean, at the time, it was very cool. But now, all these years later, I go, gosh, we did it with Curly and Meadowlark
Yeah.
and Jimmy Blacklock and Geese and just all the original Globetrotters. There we were on a basketball court with them. It boggles my mind. It really does. Nate was there. It was just the greatest group of guys, and I can see why they were always considered ambassadors for the United States of America because they truly did represent so beautifully.
I have a photograph signed by Curly, and
Oh,
it's from that. I thought I had do not disturb on my phone here, and it was yeah, signed by Curly, and it's a picture of Bob, and it's from the Harlem Globetrotters, on Gilligan's movie.
I
So
love that.
yeah, to me that movie was significant because it was the last one that had the entire cast in a movie. It was in it because Thurston Howell comes at the very end of the movie, and
Right.
so to me
That
that's
was
just
the only one we didn't have was Tina, but Tina did not do any of the movies.
right, right.
So Constance Forsland did Tina for the third movie. And I tell you what, a huge honor for me that again, in retrospect, is just unbelievable. That was the last scene Jim Backus ever filmed on anything ever. And I got to be in that
You
scene with him.
you
And
were in
there's
that.
a great picture of the two of us. I'm getting ready to say something, and I start, and he puts his hand over my mouth,
Yeah.
and my eyes are all like buggy like this. And it, first of all, I love the picture, but what an honor. And I have to tell you, when we finished the scene, and it's so funny, actors are, he kind of shuffled onto the set, and onto the sound stage, and lights, camera, action. Suddenly he was there, and then cut, and he was back to not being well. And somebody came to get him, and they were shuffling him, or he was shuffling, but they were taking him off the soundstage. And everybody, the cast and crew, and anybody visiting there that day, tears pouring out of everybody's eyes, standing ovation for Jim, because he had made it. That third movie, the Harlem Globetrotters, was written all around Jim's character. The whole bet between, about the robots and that was all supposed to be Jim. And when he was too ill to do it, then of course we had to bring in a son that nobody ever knew that they had, that the Howells had. So, but David Ruprecht was so wonderful. He did such a great job. And it was just amazing to see Jim make an appearance, even though it was his very last one.
Amazing. Yeah, I remember that scene, and that you were in there with him, and your character kept trying to give away the island. You kept trying to give away stuff. It's free here, and drinks on the house. And so yes, Howell puts his hand over your mouth, going, "Okay, stop giving away everything."
You remember better than I do. That's what it was. I was like, drinks on the house or something, and you were good. I have to go watch it again.
Well, I do have. So I have two things from that movie, and one of them is something I would love to hear from you about, and that is this sign right here. This sign I purchased, and I didn't know what it was for. I just knew that it was from the production, and the person told me that it was from a prop master that had worked on Gilligan's Island, and I had to figure out that it was from the Globetrotters production. That it was just a crew sign. I'm sure that was sitting out somewhere. That, hey, this is the way to your studio. So
yeah. But how cool that you have that? That's wonderful.
I don't have a lot of things that are like original from the productions. Those things are hard to come by, as you can imagine. A few things, so very happy to have that. I've been so impressed. The more I learned about your relationship with Bob, and of course, my experience up to now has just been seeing you in photos with him. And there's this one picture of you guys going to the TV Land Awards, and I've run across it so many times. And he's walking, to one side, and he got you in the hand, and you're there in your gown, just looking gorgeous. And I love her. I thought, man, he's going to an awards thing. I guess it was in Hollywood, and you guys are together, and he's got this big smile, both of you do. And I'm so glad that he had a happy life and that you guys were together, and because he's brought so much joy to me and to so many fans, that we all want to know he was happy, and that he had a full life. That's really important.
He did. We were so in love from the minute. It was one of those love at first sight things. From the minute we shook hands the first time, I was cast in a show with Bob on stage, a stage show. And they had a marquee out front that said Bob Denver starring in Play It Again, Sam, also starring Dreamer Perry, which was my maiden name. And so he walked into rehearsal going, "What in the world is a dreamer?" So I went, "That would be me." And he walked over and he said, "Your name's Dreamer?" And I was like, "No, Dreama." And he went, "Your name's Dreama?" He'd never heard it. And I said, "Yes." And he said, "It's nice to meet you, Dreama." And he took my hand, and that was that. And it lasted 30 years. So it was the real thing, And I'm going to be really honest. Bob and I had a child after we'd been married about 6 years. And our son was diagnosed with severe autism, nonverbal, all the things that go along with that, a lot of behaviors when he was a teenager and hormonal and all those things.
Yeah.
So Colin, our son, was 20, almost 21 when his father passed away.
Wow.
So Bob spent the last 20, I just think this is so important for people to know. He spent
Absolutely.
the last 20 years of his life with me, us giving one-on-one full-time care to our special needs son. And to me,
Absolutely.
that speaks volumes about who he was. Believe me, it was stressful. It was difficult. The last 20 years of his life weren't smooth sailing. We went through a lot together, but we went through it together and we loved each other so much. And neither of us would ever have bailed on the other one. So I can tell you, he was in love. He was very happy. He showed strength that I would never have imagined through everything, through the 20 years taking care of our son. And at the end of Bob's life, he showed a lot of strength and a lot of character. And I couldn't be more proud to be able to, represent him now that he's not here and try to keep his legacy and his memory alive. That's huge to me.
Amen. Well, every time I get a chance, I remind people that Bob was so much more than Gilligan. That
Yeah.
of course, I remember him as a child watching the show and being impressed with, he got my attention because he this childlike nature and
Right.
he's innocent, but kind of bumbling. But then, as an adult, you learn that he was a complicated person. He very smart and uh, and then to learn also that he was a great dad
Yeah.
and family man. And that's, as an adult, I can really honor that. And I have a lot of respect for what you guys accomplished. I have family members that have autism. They're on various parts of that spectrum. And I understand, I think, a lot about the challenges, some of them anyway. I can't imagine everything that you guys have gone through, but I respect so much what y'all have accomplished in raising your son.
Well, I just think when people are fans of the show and fans of Bob, you never know when you're going to meet a celebrity. Even in the case of me, I've met lots of celebrities, but you don't know, are they going to be what you hope they are? And sometimes they're not. Not often. Usually it's pretty good, but sometimes they're not what you hope. But I think Bob, of course, I'm a little partial, but I think Bob is so much more than people would have imagined him to be. He was just a really good human, not perfect, not a perfect person, but he was a really good human being. And he loved me, he loved his son, and I just think people should know that, who
Absolutely, absolutely. So, of course, Gilligan's Island first aired in 1964,
Mhm.
years ago. I mean, goodness, does it? I mean, do you remember? Do you remember it? I mean, I was a little bit younger. I mean, I was here when it came out, but I didn't really know it until the reruns.
Yeah.
Um, what do you remember as a person, out in the world that Gilligan's Island was on television? What do you remember about that?
When it premiered, I was only 14 years old, so I wasn't out in the world yet. And what I remember, which kind of blows my mind even to this day, is this was back in the days when families generally had one television.
Yep.
And early on, it was black and white
Oh,
programming. Gilligan went to color, but the first year it was black and white.
yep.
And I remember sitting with my dad, watching this show. And I can also remember being even younger and watching Dobie Gillis, Bob's first
Yeah.
really famous role. But
Well,
but I remember sitting with my dad watching this show, having no clue that I would ever work with Gilligan, meet
okay.
Gilligan, much less marry Gilligan, and have a child with him. So that it's just goes to show you don't know in
Yeah.
life what could happen. I didn't sit there dreaming, ooh, I want to marry him. However, I do want the ladies out there to know, the ones who had crushes on him, and I do have people write me once in a while to say they had a crush on him. He was very sexy. Gilligan is not. I know when you think of Gilligan, you don't think romance or anything like that, because obviously that was not the character. But Bob was very romantic and
Wow.
and a really loving person. So
Like he was
yeah,
devoted.
yes.
That's cool. Well, you write a whole book about this. I mean, I don't know if you got it with you, but I have it with me. You've got this book, Gilligan's Dreams, and it says Dreama, not Dreamer, so that's good.
Well, it's called Dreams because Bob, we came up, we wanted Gilligan in the title, obviously, for obvious reasons, but we came up with all kinds of different Gilligan's this, Gilligan's that. And finally, Bob always called me Dreams. He always
Oh,
called me that. Well, if he
wow.
wasn't calling me honey or sweetheart or something, but he always called me Dreams. It would be, hey, Dreams, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I thought that title talked about his dreams, just sort of in general, his dreams for our autistic son, his dreams, meaning me. You know, it just seemed like a really appropriate title. And let me tell you while I'm thinking about it, because I don't want to forget that I'm going to be coming out with another book in the next few months in celebration or in honor of 60 years of Gilligan's Island.
There
And
we
it's
go.
going to be called Island to Icon, The Many Lives of Bob Denver. And
Oh,
it's
wow.
going to be about Bob's career, and it's mostly a photo book.
Oh, wow.
It's going to be photos when he was a kid and photos through Dobie Gillis and things. I went through everything. We had things of his mother's that we came into after his mom passed away, and found things like a Christmas card from Elvis and the Colonel, and found
God.
things like that I didn't even know I had.
Oh,
Found things like notes to Bob's mother from Glenn Ford, the act. I don't know if you remember, that's the golden age of Hollywood, but he was a huge actor in those days. A letter to Gran, Bob's mother, from Helen Hayes, the first lady of theater for so many years. So all of these things are going to be in this book. Photographs of all these things are going to be in the book. There'll be some photographs that you've seen online because everything's out there, you know. And then there are going to be some things that nobody's ever seen before that are really going to be fun. So we're in the process right now of editing it, and hopefully in a few months that book will be ready to rock and roll.
wow.
And the fans can get that in honor of the 60th anniversary of Gilligan.
Wow. I have something that I think it's unique. It was a photograph that Dawn signed to Bob, and she put an inscription on it. And it's a little note to Bob. And I mean, it's from Dawn to Bob. How many, and I ended up getting it from a gentleman by the name of Bob D'Arcy,
Uh-huh.
who was Bob's
Bob
stand-in
Stanton. Yes, yes.
series. And I guess they worked on some other things too. But I had an interview with Bob,
Uh-huh.
not in a Zoom call, but anyway, I did have a conversation with him, and he has sent me this photo, and I'll send you a scan of it at some
Okay.
point. But anyway, it says Bob Dear. She calls him Dear. You're one of the special people. May you always have happiness and success. It certainly should be yours. Love, Dawn. So,
Oh, that's very sweet. I
so
loved her so much. She and I were really close friends for about
yeah,
45 years. So from 19, what was it, 78, when we did the when I first met them in 1977.
oh yeah,
So however many years that adds up to, she passed away at the end of 2020.
yeah,
And
yeah.
but we did personal appearances together as Marianne and Mrs. Gilligan.
Gilligan, yeah,
So we had so much fun on the road together. I really miss her. And you know, the thing is, except for Tina, who never stayed close to the rest of the
yeah,
cast, everybody's gone. And
yeah,
sometimes that's really hard for me to believe that
yeah,
here anymore, you know.
yeah. Well, that's why you're so important, is because the people that are, are connected to that cast, to the castaways, in such a dear way, that you're so important to the fans, to people that admired the show. Anyway, so it's why it's so important that we talk to you. I'm excited about the book that that you've put together, and I can't wait to see it. And I'm sure you'll put it on your website, right?
Oh, absolutely. On the website and also Facebook. There's one
Yeah.
other thing that you're going to possibly like the idea of.
Okay.
Right now, the working title is I Heart Bob Denver, but they are taking my book and making a documentary about, now we're in the early stages, in the fundraising stages and all that. But if you want to see more about what's going on and keep up with that, you and the viewers can go to I Heart, the word heart, Bob Denver on Facebook, and follow that page. And
Oh, okay.
that will, as we go along and as the money's raised and as we start getting all of that together, you'll be able to follow that. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
excited about that. Everybody's always said my book should be, some kind of movie. So I had a Emmy award-winning documentary filmmaker approach me about doing it. So we're going to work on that. And right
I've
now, working title, I Heart Bob Denver. So
uh, I've watched some of your Facebook posts, and of course, I invite everybody to go over there and Dreama's page. But
yeah.
yeah, I've been kind of watching the news that you've been sharing about it, and very excited that we could end up with a documentary. The book could be a great start. I'm sure that all that research is going to really be helpful for the production of it. So that it's going to be great to see that. And hopefully there might be a way that us as fans, we can help. I certainly would love to contribute anything I can. Some of you've seen some of my the items that I have. If you're ever trying to depict a certain scene from Gilligan's
If we
Island,
need something, I call you.
yeah,
I love it.
please, yes.
I'm just going to mention this very briefly in passing, because I just had a meeting about this, a Zoom meeting that I told you I was having before this. But we are working on a one-woman show for me, where I will go around to local theaters or like small theaters. And I don't know, it's all just sort of in the planning stages, but we are working on a one-woman show. I don't know what we're going to call it, but where I would go around with my books and all the things that I have, and do like an hour-and-a-half show for people about my life with Bob, about challenges that we faced together, who he was as a person. A lot of it will be nostalgia. A lot of it will also be surviving after losing,
Yeah.
somebody who is so important to you, where so many people are going through that, and just, I don't know, I'm very excited about it. I'll tell you more about it as we
Please
go
do.
along, but I'm very excited about that too.
Well, we've talked a lot about Bob, and we've talked a little about Dawn, and some of the other cast. I'd love to hear about your maybe any interactions you've had with Alan or Natalie, and Russell.
Gosh, obviously not in many, many years, but I
Right,
was
right.
close to Natalie. I love Natalie. Natalie was exactly off screen like she was on screen.
I've heard
So
that.
I mean, she actually used the lorgnettes. She was exactly the same. And she was the one who told me many, many years ago, oh gosh, back in the 70s, so that's a lot of years ago, a lady never tells her age ever. And I'm like, okay. So I've tried not to do that. Nowadays, it's kind of hard because with the internet and all the information out there, you can't hide it anymore. But and then Alan was just a big teddy bear, and he was also like you thought he would be. He loved being the skipper, loved it, wore the hat all the time, had the restaurant, the Lobster Barrel out in Los Angeles, where after the show was over and everything, he would go there and greet the customers, and
Oh,
just a great guy. And Jim was just hilarious and funny, and Dawn was wonderful, and Tina I've not been around Tina a lot because she didn't do the movies, but we were invited to the White House in 1998, I think it
Oh,
was. And Tina went to the White House, and I got to be around her some, and she could not have been lovelier to me, you know. So I have no bones to pick with any of them. I just feel blessed that I fell in love with Bob and got to know them all, and they were like family. You know, they really were. The cast was like a little family together,
yeah,
and I got to be part of that. I'm just so happy.
well, I'm very happy for you. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you.
Um, you talked about your one woman show and theater and stuff. Have you seen Gilligan's Island the musical? Have you had a
You know,
chance
I
to?
haven't.
Oh my
I
gosh!
haven't. And last summer it played somewhere. I think it was in Maryland.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think that I could have gotten to, but I didn't find out about it until it was like a done deal. But no, I
No,
would love to see it because I never had. Bob never saw it. So we knew about it, but we never got to see it.
I'm trying to talk the local playhouse into doing it into doing it because I've gotten the chance to meet Hope Joubert and she Juber, excuse me, Hope Juber, um, who is Sherwood Schwartz's daughter. I'm saying that for
Right.
the of those listening. Um, and she along with her brother Lloyd and Sherwood, they worked on putting this play together. Sherwood had written it, I guess, years ago, and then Hope and her husband did the music for it. And anyway, it's available for play groups uh, to acquire and put on their own Gilligan's Island, musical. And
Yeah.
it's very musical. You can see some of it on the YouTube, but about the time I learned of it, it seemed like all of the shows were wrapping up. And this has been around since I think
Long
since
time.
the yeah, it's been out there for a
Right.
while. I
It's been,
wasn't
it was out there when Bob was still alive, and Bob has been gone almost 20 years. So it's been around a while. Yeah.
yeah, next year will be 20 years. That's hard to imagine.
Yeah, actually, this September will be 19, but that's close enough to 20 to sort of round it off. It's unbelievable to me that, gosh,
Yes.
some people it's been that long. But
See, I hear that you manage a radio station.
I own a radio station
There you go. You
called
own it. Even
Little Betty Radio, and if you download the app TuneIn Radio, tune in one word radio.
okay.
If you download that app and open it up and search Little Buddy Radio, it'll bring us up. So you can listen to, people think if they're not here in West Virginia where I am, that they can't listen to it. But no, you can listen to it
Within it.
online. You can Bluetooth it in your car. When I go traveling, I Bluetooth my radio station. I just got back from Nashville a few days ago and could listen to Little Betty Radio all the way down there and back. So
What is your format? What do y'all do?
it is good music. It's when Bob and I started it, we started it, oh gosh, in 2004. Bob passed away in 2005. So he didn't really live to see it come to fruition the way it has. But we
Yeah.
wanted it to be nostalgic, all about good music, nothing controversial on the radio station, just fun. The format, because it is a nonprofit radio station, has to be, it can't be all advertisement and big commercials and that kind of thing. It's got to be a little bit softer and easier, like something like NPR would be. It's now that might be misleading because it's all music. Anyway,
There you go.
I have spent years building that playlist, and when I tell you it's every genre, every decade,
Yeah.
as long as it's good music, that I'm so proud of the station and that radio station. This is May. Oh my gosh, this month the radio station is 20 years old.
Oh well, there we go.
And I had it for almost all that time by myself. And I did at one time have a morning show called Sunny Side Up on the radio station. We had that for about 4 or 5 years. And then I don't want to get off on anything tragic or anything, but I was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to take care of that. And I'm all good. Not a problem. Just actually went back for checkups recently and everything is good. But the morning show had to be discontinued when I was going through that. So, it is, I think musically, it is one of the best stations. I don't care if it is mine. It's one of the best stations I've ever heard musically. It's just a great radio station.
Well, we got to talk about your books.
Okay.
When I read these, especially that first one, and the rhyming and the just the pace of it, so cute. Oh my gosh, just the
Thank you so much. So you like the rhyme?
Yes.
I love rhyme. I love rhyme. I was encouraged to write the second one in prose, so I did. But I do. I love the rhyme. Our son loved rhyme. And but Bob, the first one that you're showing there, the Four Bears in a Box. Oh my gosh. Probably years before he passed away. Bob came to me one day and he said, I think you should write a children's book. And I said, oh, you do you? And he was like, yes. And I said, what would I write a book about? I wouldn't know what to write it about. And he goes, I'm going to give you a title. And I said, you've thought of a title? And he's like, yeah. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, Four Bears in a Bag. And I looked at him and I said, what would four bears be doing in a bag? And he said, that's what you got to figure out. So I was like, okay. So I did, figured it out, wrote it in rhyme because our son loved rhyme. And Bob got to hear the written, yes, right there. Those are his original drawings. Oh, see, I love those. He was sitting one night just sketching and he gave those to me and I kept them. So when the book was published, they got to be in there. He would just not believe it. But at any rate, I didn't actually work on finding a publisher or any of that until, oh my gosh, 15, 16 years after Bob passed away. Well, back in 2018, I guess it would have been. So that would have been like maybe 13 years after Bob passed away. And when I did find the publisher, they wanted to change the title because nobody 20 years later knew about paper bags. Nobody used them anymore. And so they asked if I would change it to box. And so that required some rewriting, but it made the story that much better. Because what kid does not love a box?
A box, especially a big one.
Yeah. They love the boxes. They play in them. They pretend they're all different kinds of things. And that just took the story in a whole different direction. So I love that little book so much. I can't tell you. It reminds me, first of all, of Bob being the inspiration for it. And I just love it. It's a great seller. And if you guys have little ones in your life, probably, the ones that you read aloud to all the way up to maybe 8 years old where they can read it on their own. That book is that's a good one. They both are good. But the second one is called Four Bears in a Box, Back to the Beach. And so people who have beach homes and love the beach, they love that book. So it's fun.
And there's a little Easter egg in it at the end. The end.
Yes.
Just
the story behind the story.
Tune in.
What I just told you is what that page is about. It's all about how the book came to be. And I'm just that's the other thing I didn't know when Bob said, I want you to write a children's book. I didn't understand at all that he was setting me on a path that would serve me well after he passed away. I love to write. I always loved to write and had not written until Bob kind of encouraged me to do it. And I've become not only Gilligan's Dreams and the Two Bear books, but I wrote a book called Zen and Now, which is all about the love of a master and his or her dog. I love that little book so much. And now I've got this other book coming out, Island to Icon. So he really set me on a path that I didn't realize was going to save me after he left me, He was
he obviously was very attentive, and he saw your strengths and he saw your talent, and he knew you needed an outlet for that. And yeah, I just believe that, he was looking out for you.
He thought, I mean, Bob, I'm not just saying this. Bob honestly thought I could do anything I set my mind to,
You
way
can't.
more than I thought I could, right? And so, that kind of that kind of believing in having somebody believe in you that way is just so remarkable. And when he passed away, I I was like, I'm going to have to do that for myself now. I'm going to have to believe in me enough for both of us. He's gone. And just everything he taught me in our 30 years together kicked in. And, it didn't happen overnight. It was a bit of a slow process, but I came to understand that, I can do things, and I do things always with him on my shoulder, making me know that I can. So I'm going to get teary. Even all these years later, I still miss him so much. I can't tell you. He was my best friend. He was my partner. We did it. I felt like with him, I could do anything. So I had to learn to feel that without him.
Still with you, just because you've got that history together, still with you, still encouraging you, telling you you can do anything you set your mind to.
Yeah.
And just, I guess it was just a couple of years ago, you released the audio version of Bob's book.
Oh, look at that. You even have that.
You told me I was one of the first that got that. When I first got it, you said that was one of the first ones, because
Well, then you were, because when I do something new and whoever orders it first from the website, or, now I have no control over Amazon. So if somebody buys something on Amazon, I don't know about it. If they buy it from me on the website, then obviously I'm aware of it. And I get the package ready to go out. And if somebody's the first one from the website to do something, I always try to make note of that and let them know that they were the first ones to get it. So isn't that just so much fun, though, to hear his voice? And oh, that was such a remarkable find when I found it here at the house. It was a cassette recording, and I did not have a cassette player. I was going all over my house trying to find, surely I've got a cassette player somewhere so I can listen to this. And then my manager, Burke Allen, once we tracked down the cassette player, then he was able to get everything digitized and moved over. So
yeah. So you get to hear Bob's voice actually, reading
Bob
the book.
actually reads his book.
Wow.
Which was unheard of when he wrote that book in 1993. Audiobooks were not a huge big deal. I think they existed, but they weren't a big deal back then. And so the fact that there's audio of it blew my mind to begin with. I was like, wow, I can't believe we have that. Now audiobooks are a huge thing,
Yeah.
And you can get it on audible.com. It's available there, or the hard copy like you have. So yeah, I just felt really good. And then I got to do the introduction to the chapters and got to say hello to the fans and thank the fans at the end. And so that was really, really special. Yeah.
I've had you all this time. I've had, well, you've been very generous with your time. I do want to make sure you had a chance to talk about the foundation, about honor flights and things like that. Anything else that's near and dear to your heart that you'd like to?
Yeah, just that, the foundation is going to be behind the documentary. Certainly that's, those two are going to be in, what's the word I'm looking for, in conjunction with each other. And Honor Flight was always free. Honor Flight was a program I founded in West Virginia back in 2011. We had more veterans per capita than any other state in the union. And there was no Honor Flight program, official program, to honor their service. And when I found that out, my assistant at the time and I set out to right that wrong and have an Honor Flight program in the state. And we called it Always Free. Mountaineers are always free is the motto of West Virginia. So we decided to call that program Always Free Honor Flight. We did it up until 2020. And of course, for a few years in 2020, 2021, they weren't allowing the programs to go to DC. And then my assistant, who was the heart and soul of that program, passed away in 2023.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so, no, 2022, actually. Um, and so that sort of put the brakes on everything again. But I tell you what, doing that program was the privilege of my lifetime. I got to really understand in a way that I'd never understood before the sacrifices made not only by the veteran, but by the families of our active military
Yeah.
and the veterans who've served. The World War II veterans, I'm telling you, they saved the world, and they are the most humble people you would ever want to meet.
Yeah.
And the fact that I got to do it for 10, 11 years, and the fact that that we served so many, hundreds, if not thousands of veterans here in West Virginia is just the one of the greatest things in my life. It really truly is. And I think Bob would have been, he knew nothing about honor flight. We didn't know about that when he passed away, but I think he would be very pleased because I know something that people don't know about Bob. Back in 1968, on his own accord, no press about it, he went to Vietnam to bring a little bit of home to our Vietnam
Oh,
soldiers. And he was there for 6 weeks. He
oh,
spent
wow.
on the
That's
front
not,
lines. He was in the MASH units, and he went to visit the young boys,
oh,
and
wow.
was very moved by that experience. So I think honor flight, I think he would approve, would
Yeah.
have approved totally.
Well, I haven't mentioned this, but I'm a veteran. I was in the Air Force for 9 years, active duty,
Thank you for your service, Anna.
and I got out right after Desert Storm. So I was there during a conflict, even though maybe I wasn't in theater. So I know the people that did have to go in theater that were involved in some of the combat from an Air Force perspective, and any support for veterans. And of course, I've got veterans in my family. My dad was a veteran. He retired, and my grandfather was also, anyway, so a lot of military history. There's so many, I think a lot of families in America, they have military history. They can appreciate anything that's done for veterans. And so thank you for that. So glad that you did that part as well. Um, well, like I said, you've been very, very generous with your time. Thank you
Oh,
so
listen,
much.
it's my pleasure. I love talking about my husband. Hello. I love it.
There's last question, and that is you are Bob's voice right now.
Yes.
So here it is, 60th anniversary. What do you think, Bob? I mean, would he wax philosophical about, what it's like to, 60 years, later to be thinking about that little show that they were doing back in 64, didn't know what was going to happen, wonder what he would say about it now.
He would see when he passed away, the show had been on the air for 40 years at that
Wow.
time.
Yeah.
And he was mind boggled by it. I mean, when they made it, who knows when you're making a series? And of course,
Yeah.
back then, there were 3 networks, and you didn't have all this competition, cable, and, all the things that we have now. So when you had a hit show, whether somebody watched that show or not, they knew who you were. They were totally aware of you. Now, like I'm an HGTV addict, and I can tell you everybody on that.
There you go.
If Bob were here, he'd have no idea who those people were because that would not be something he'd watch. But back in those days, you did know, and so he was surprised to begin with that it was as successful initially
Oh,
as it
yeah.
was, but he was absolutely blown away that 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, 25 years later, it was still rerunning. And that's when you said you caught it, was like when it was on after school, and kids running home to see if they got rescued yet. He loved that part. When it got to be 40 years, he just couldn't believe it because it was a little sitcom, meant to be an 8 o'clock time slot kind of show
Yep.
where, he did the part you were talking earlier about his character, and he purposely made his character, and he talked about this, like a child. He wanted the character to be childlike because he
Yeah.
wanted kids who were watching the show to see through Gilligan that you could mess up, you could ruin everybody's plans, you could do all that, and they might get mad at you, but in the end, they would always forgive you because they loved you. So that was real important to him. And the fact that that message resonated all those years later was like, whoa, he couldn't believe it. And now, 60 years, I think he would be speechless. I don't think he would know what to say about it, because he would never in a million years have dreamt that it would be on the air 60 years later. Now, not to the degree that it was at 40 years, but it's still out there. You know, you can still see it.
I can
People
tell you
still love it. People do.
from a fan perspective that the interest, especially among people in my age group that were born around that time, it seems to be increasing. I've been actually watch the Facebook groups. Their activity is increasing. The number of people engaged is increasing. I think people look more and more to social media, and so we look for things like Gilligan's Island and it's such a beautiful community of people that loved those childlike performances and that kind of show. So people
Yeah.
need that. They need it even more today than they ever have.
And nostalgia. It's
Yeah.
just, it's obviously a more innocent time when, I don't know, maybe things were going on that we didn't know about, and it wasn't as innocent as we thought, but in our head and hearts, it was a very innocent, simple time.
Yep.
And I miss that sometimes. I'm telling you, I really do.
Yes. Well, this has just been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Anna, for having me. I really appreciate it. I love to be able to talk about Bob and to share him with the world, and to know that people still, still love him and think about him and support
And we
him.
still
Great.
carry all that through some of the things that you're offering, like the T-shirt you have on. People.
Yes. Can we see it? I don't know how much of it you can see,
Yeah, we
but I
can.
designed it. It is a Gilligan hat and a Gilligan shirt. And then, oh my gosh, let me see if I can get up here. Oh,
Can you imagine
right here is a little minnow at the bottom.
Yeah, if you were,
so cute.
people would go, "Hey, what's that about?" You get to talk to them about Gilligan's Island. So
Exactly.
all right, thank you so much.
Thank you. And goodbye to everybody. Thank you for having me.